Welcome to GigaBrain, brought to you by Spell Labs. This is the podcast where we speak to the smartest minds across the DeFi space, exploring the ideas, innovations, and people shaping the future of crypto.
And we are back. So guys, welcome to the second episode of GigaBrain podcast here, taking you to the best conversations in DeFi, in crypto, and taking you to the best hot takes in the industry. Today, we are here with Kedian Sun from Level USD, stablecoins, and going to just say a little bit about Level for our audience here. So Kedian is the co-founder of Level, a novel stablecoin protocol launched in 2024 that stands out for being powered by lending markets such as Aave and Morpho. Level deploys users' reserves into Aave v3, USDC, and USDT vaults, as well as Morpho stakehouse USDC vault, and redistributes them the generated yield back to the stakers of Level USD. So to kickstart, here with Kedian, we love to know about your background. Why are you in crypto? Why this market is fascinating for you? And yeah, please, the stage is yours, and please let us know a little about yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for the introduction. I'm excited to be here. To start, I can tell you a bit more about, just my personal background. So before crypto, I was in essentially various forms of finance, and you can consider crypto kind of like the next evolution of finance as well. My career started with studying finance at Wharton. That's where I did my undergrad, and then after that, I did a few years in investment banking at a investment bank called Lazard here in New York, where I'm based. And then I think I've always sort of sought out more innovative kind of areas of finance. So, I moved from traditional kind of finance into fintech, worked at one of the fastest growing fintech companies in the US called Brex, back when it was just kind of like a rocket ship. And then I think what got me into crypto full time ultimately is just seeing essentially the kind of slight lack of innovation in fintech, which is a little bit ironic. I think being in this space, and obviously fintech has solved a lot of problems over the last decade and reached a lot more people and provided those financial products for people. But I think if you really think about a lot of fintech, it's actually kind of like a wrapper or like a UI UX improvement on top of existing financial infrastructure that's fundamentally broken. And so it's kind of you have all of these pipes and these, that's not really working that well. And fintech kind of connects those things together, wraps it in this nice UI for people. But once again, the underlying pipes are actually broken. And I think that's where crypto steps in, and I sort of view it as the next evolution of financial innovation. It's we have these rails that are just clearly more efficient. And that's, I think, what's extremely exciting about crypto and why I entered into the space. I sort of see this as the potential to improve financial access and improve financial products for people globally, not just kind of in developed markets where I think fintech's kind of, where the extent of fintech innovation sort of tapped out.
Yeah, I agree 100% here. I also studied in the US at EC Berkeley. So I know how the also did TradFi before too, and moved through a couple companies through VC and all that. And I completely agree with everything you said. So my next question here, which I think our audience really wants to hear, is so what's Level and why Level is important? And if you can really explain why all this knowledge and all this academic knowledge and all this expertise that you brought in from academia and all that now are put into Level to really develop this stablecoin product, and why is that important and how does it work?
Yeah, so like you described earlier, the core product at Level is currently the stablecoin or yield-bearing stablecoin. But I think we sort of view that as the first product within the broader Level vision. And at Level, ultimately what we're trying to build is essentially an on-chain banking platform. And so what we want to do is we want to provide all of the banking and financial services that people currently get or don't get from their financial institutions or banks, and essentially move that as much of that on chain as possible to make it a lot more globally accessible, and minimize the need for financial intermediaries. So that's bigger picture what we're trying to build at Level. What we have so far, like I mentioned, or like you mentioned as well, is this yield-bearing stablecoin product. And so what we've done is kind of just created this very simple model where users can deposit their like USDC or USDT. You can think of that as on-chain cash or money. And then what we do is we lend that out to generate yield in very safe places like Aave and Morpho. And once again, this kind of mirrors how banks operate in the sense that banks, ultimately what they do is they take your deposits, they lend it out, but they also allow you to spend against your deposits, right? And that's kind of what Level USD itself is. It's essentially like the representation of your deposit of on-chain money that is generating yield like in the background.
Got it. So I think you already answered my next question, which is going to be what is the big difference between USDC and USDT versus Level? And I think you already gave a very good explanation here about that.
I can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah,
I guess.
Please.
I think that will be
people
very
always,
it's a very common question, obviously, because there are a lot of products that call themselves stablecoins, and I think the question sometimes implies that we're like almost competing against USDC and USDT.
Yeah.
But like I described, actually we're building on top of USDC and USDT. We're making this like on-chain money more useful and more productive by generating yield on it, and then also allowing people to spend, or eventually hopefully be able to spend Level USD as kind of like a deposit token.
Got it. So, and what is the really the problem that Level USD is solving that other companies and other stables didn't figure out yet, but you are actually doing it? What is your superstar power here?
Right. Yeah, I think the very short answer is essentially like the simplicity. I think we've seen a lot of stable coins come to market, in the last year. I think people are probably almost getting tired of like hearing about a new stable coin every other day. But I think what we've seen, at least especially when we started, is most of these new stable coins are very focused on quite complicated strategies. And I can go into this in like a lot of detail, but essentially like we actually think there's a gap in the market for true like low risk simple savings products that people can understand. And we think like and essentially like the best way or like the most simple product that is both safe and easy to understand for users is like it is like a stable coin that is built on top of lending protocols and generates yield that way, as opposed to like we've seen a lot of others where it's, you're either having complicated strategies or you're bringing like a liquid RWAs on chain and you're not sure where your money is actually generating yield. So I think that's kind of like, where we're focused is just like initially is about, we have this yield generating stablecoin or a savings product that's simple. And then the next step is like, we're actually trying to build more use cases for Level USD beyond just like the savings. And that's kind of something that we're currently from the spot.
Got it. And so taking exactly that you just said, and so how do you see the role of Level USD within the broader DeFi ecosystem? So how do you see the future on DeFi specifically?
Yeah, so within DeFi itself, I think a lot of it is just like we're helping to add we're helping to take advantage of the composability of DeFi. So I think a question that we often get is, your like Level is putting the assets into Aave and Morpho. Why can't users just do that themselves? And the answer is yes, they can. But one issue that we have that a lot of that you might notice is when you deposit into Aave or Morpho, you essentially get like the lending receipt tokens. So you get Aave USDC, Aave USDT, or like stake USDC, for example. And once you have these assets, even though they're theoretically composable, there's actually not too much you can do with them, just because that's not the focus of lending protocols. Whereas Level is essentially kind of aggregating these various receipt tokens into a single token level, or into either Level USD or S Level USD that's earning yield. And what we've done is we've integrated this quite deeply into DeFi, right? So you can use our assets on Pendle, that you can then use these assets or the Pendle assets as collateral on Morpho and eventually other lending protocols as well. And so we kind of unlock this composability that DeFi is like created for.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And thank you for that. So taking here a couple of rapid fire questions for you. So in your opinion, what's the biggest stablecoin risk as of today?
Yeah, I think it's the marketing of stablecoins. I think we call a lot of things stablecoins when there is like a very wide spectrum. You have true payment stablecoins like USDC, USDT, and then you have the products I mentioned earlier, which is like, these much more complicated strategies that were wrapped into stablecoins. And I think that the biggest risk is that users sort of think of all stablecoins as the same when there is like a very different risk profile. And I think that kind of gap in kind of like it's essentially like it creates a gap in expectations that if something does go wrong, then it could be very dangerous.
No, yeah, agreed. So, in your opinion, what's the end game for stablecoins? So that's the big one.
Yeah. So I think we've already seen like the transition from like a cash society to like at least in the West, right, to money. We have digital money already, but it's kind of like held in these like centralized ledgers and banks. I think the end game of stablecoins is to actually become like to replace existing digital money, and so kind of realize its full potential as money, but like in a way that users don't even necessarily like realize, right? Like stablecoins will become kind of like the new plumbing for finance. And yeah, that's essentially the end game, but people might not necessarily even know that.
Yeah, I think all the crypto maxis agree with that, like 100%. I would say, or either stables or like BTC, like so one or the other, pretty much. Yeah. So going on to controversial takes, what's your most controversial take on crypto or DeFi that you are thinking as of now?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I think a lot of like the things that were controversial even a few months ago are like no longer controversial now. But I'd say that I think right now there is a lot of excitement and for good reasons around like traditional institutions and fintechs getting into crypto. And it's good for visibility for the industry. But I think generally speaking, when you hear about a lot of news, especially coming from outside of crypto, it's generally overblown. So I think that's like kind of my controversial take is there's no need to get too excited about like these kind of traditional financial institutions getting into crypto. And I think the best example is like in the last cycle, we saw so many like, Web2 companies get extremely excited and announce a lot of things related to NFTs. And it's kind of like, where are they now? I do think stablecoins is different. There's a lot more, true use cases, but I think there just needs to be like the expectations need to be tapered a little bit when it comes to TradFi interest.
Okay, yeah, very, very good answer here. And so, in your opinion, again, what are people not paying attention to that they should be? So, in your opinion, what is happening right now in the trenches of crypto that people don't know, but maybe people should know?
I think a little bit related to my last answer is that I think people should be paying attention to actual products that are being built in the space and not just like the announcements of products that are going to be built. And so, yeah, like once again, I think people are paying a lot of attention to like the big companies, the big institutions getting into the space. But, there is a lot of stuff that's being built by these kind of more like upstarts. And, historically in tech and innovation, we've always seen that even though incumbents have technically they have an advantage just because of their scale. I think a lot of like the big companies or like the big protocols of the future are just getting started. And that's something that.
And can you maybe give one or two examples of something that you are looking right now that people maybe be sleeping on?
Yeah, I think that's a tough. Let me think if I have one off the top of my head, but
Level probably.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Level. Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Well,
that's the first one. The second one.
No, I think it's like Swell, the second one, of course.
Let's go.
And then, yeah, I think I think it's like a lot of these, like, for example, like the ways that allow people to just like spend crypto. So I think some of these like crypto cards, I think it's getting more attention, but I think that's going to be like that's just like the first step into like, additional, basically, ways for people to use financial services through crypto.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, like we are also working on our own cards too. So that is big alpha. So yeah, like that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. So 100% agree. Moving on to the future of stable coins here. So the stable coin narrative is heating up, right? As you said, more and more stables, more and more companies. So can you describe in your opinion and the way you are seeing, of course, the market moving, like what is next for stable coins and how do you see the market continue to expand and how it will expand to the next level?
Yeah, so I mean, the market's obviously heating up just because I think there is genuinely massive like potential for actual value to be created using stablecoins. And I think we will, like, despite what I said earlier, we will see kind of like the stablecoins really taking off from like a few different sources. Like I do think most of the in the long term, most of the innovation will come from smaller upstarts that are kind of creating use cases for stablecoins. But then we will also see like the traditional institutions incorporating stablecoins more. I personally think they generally just by the scale, like they'll move slower. That's kind of like just like the fact that everyone in the space, whether you're early or you're like an existing like institution, the fact that everyone is going to be like kind of entering stablecoins, using stablecoins, building around them, that's kind of like what's going to drive that next level. And I think a lot of this growth, which I think everyone's sort of talking about, will be coming in like the emerging markets. I think that's where like the most value is created using stablecoins, and like and I think we're increasingly seeing people focus on building for that region of the world.
No, that's definitely true. More and more news I see about talking about like specific Asian countries or even Africa right now, with Nigeria like really like making big moves in this, and specifically talking about next big moves for governments. Can you explain the Genius Act and why that is really a big deal for stables?
Yeah, so I think in simple terms, the Genius Act is essentially like the first time that the US has provided very, relatively very clear guidance and regulations on stablecoins. And so what this means is that it legitimizes stablecoins kind of as like this new technology, and it allows, it basically sets the scene for like kind of mass adoption or mass innovation and adoption by like any institution that can be defined as like a issuer for stablecoins. And so, I think just like for better or for worse, the US is obviously considered like the leader in like technology and just in a lot of different areas. And so the fact that the US has done this, especially in like an environment that's been very hostile for like a very long time, kind of just opens up like the floodgates for people to kind of build and innovate with stablecoins.
Yeah, agreed. And so, taking it back a little bit about you saying about the narrative heating up now with the Genius Act and all this. So, in your opinion, what's the outlook for stables in the next like 3 to 5 years? You mentioned that it's completely replacing the financial system. You mentioned a couple hot takes here and there, but in your view, of course, I will say that maybe replacing the full financial system is maybe like a 10 or 20 years ahead. So, in the medium term here, how do you see being played out in the markets?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, it's like, maybe I'm like too bullish, but I do think it's going to be faster than 10 or 20 years. I think if progress were to continue linearly, maybe in 10 to 20 years, but I think like a lot of the times when there is true innovation, like the progress happens exponentially. So it's a lot faster. And I would say that potentially in like 5 to 10 years, we actually see a lot of the traditional financial system replaced by stablecoins. I do agree that 3 to 5 is probably still considered medium term. So I think at that point, like we will see like, or if anything, we might not even see or users might not see the direct impact, just because like a lot of the rails are being replaced kind of underneath the hood, like I was explaining before. And then, I think the other thing is just like, in the next 3 to 5 years during this growth phase, we're just going to see a lot more competition. And that's actually like a really good thing to drive innovation. And ultimately that's going to just create more value for users. So I think users might experience this as just like, they'll just have either, more access to good financial products, or they'll have, or like the existing financial products will become better. And, they, like I keep saying, like they might not even realize why that's happening. It's just like they just know that their experience with the financial system is getting better.
Okay, big alpha here. That's pretty good. So this is pretty good. So next, what's next for Level? Like everyone wants to know. People that are clicking this podcast, listening to this podcast, want to know. So tell us all the alpha, all the new stuff that you guys are doing in the next, let's say, 1 to 2 quarters. And what can users really expect from Level going forward?
Yeah, so just at like a high level, we're ultimately just like building up more of this vision that I described earlier for Level, which is like becoming this on-chain sort of like financial services and banking provider for users. And so, so one of the things that we're also looking to, I think similar to you, is just like how can we allow people to spend Level USD, and one of them, like the most natural one, is like a card as well. So that's something that we are exploring, as well as other additional like financial services, including more interesting like lending, borrowing options. And all of this, I think the way to think about what the products we build is like, what can people access from a bank that or like what can people in the West access from a bank that a lot of people globally can't access? And then, Level is trying to fill that gap by bringing these things on chain and making them a lot more accessible to people globally.
No, agree. And just as a final question here, you also mentioned emerging markets. Like, how are you seeing, for example, Level being used, let's say in Asia or Africa? If you have any specific takes on that.
Yeah, so I mean, in crypto, sometimes it's hard to know exactly where your end users are coming from. But if you just look at website traffic for Level, a lot of like our current users are coming from Latin America, like LATAM, Africa, Southeast Asia, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like these are the regions that have the least access historically, and I think crypto is just kind of unlocking these new use cases for them.
Yeah. No, you are absolutely right. So I think that these are all my questions. I don't know if you want to add anything specific for Level, but I will give you the final 3-4 minutes if you want to expand on any topic, and then if you can also say where people can find you, Level, what they if they want to know more, the website or anything, please feel free to say the final remarks.
Yeah, no, I think we covered almost like everything, and like a lot of very thoughtful questions, and so appreciate you asking all of them. Just like feel free to just keep following Level as well as myself. So best place is on Twitter, as you would expect. So you can follow Level USD, which is LEVEL USD. That's our account handle on Twitter, and then personally, I'm Kedian Sun, KEDIAN SUN. So yeah, just follow us to stay updated, kind of on our progress. And yeah, once again, thanks so much for hosting this.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll see each other in the next episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks.
Bye.
GigaBrain is brought to you by Swell Labs. To find out more about Swell, go to swellnetwork.io and make sure to search for GigaBrain in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit the follow button so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening.